As we all know, last week Palantir were awarded a very substantial contract with the UK's National Healthcare Service, the NHS. We keep saying just how important this contract is for Palantir's future, but in this video I want to discuss the exact potential implications that I see happening as a result of this contract. Joining my Patreon community will give you access to a group of like-minded investors that want to speak about financial freedom, Palantir stock, different stocks, investing strategies, and everything in between. If you join, it will cost you £3 a month or the equivalent in your area, and you can come over there, talk every day on the Discord with myself and the community. You'll also get notified every single time I buy or sell in my own portfolio, and you'll get weekly portfolio updates for me. If that sounds good to you, check out the link in the description below. So this contract that Palantir got awarded was for them to be the supplier of the Federated Data Platform, the FDP, for the NHS. At a very high level, this is a piece of software that will sit across NHS trusts and integrated care systems. It will allow all of these systems to connect data that they already hold in a safe and secure environment. No new data will be collected as a result of this FDP. This means that the NHS will actually be able to link up multiple organisations that all are using vast volumes of data every single day, which will then help better manage patient care. And this problem of disjointed data isn't just specific to the NHS, it's the healthcare industry in general. And even looking outside of the healthcare industry, many companies have a problem with disjointed data and utilising that data as effectively and as efficiently as possible, because we live in a world now where there is just so much data. This FDP should bring many benefits to the NHS. It should help reduce delays and decrease patient waiting times. It should help ease staff burdens and actually allow those staff members to focus on what's important rather than focusing on tasks, pieces of admin that is wasting their time. And it should allow patients not to have to repeat information every step of the process, which has been highlighted by many patients across the UK as a real issue with the NHS. Of course, this contract is going to be giving a lot of money to Palantir. It isn't quite the amount of money that the Palantir community and everyone else was expecting. We were all thinking it would be £480 million. It's actually 330 million, and we don't really know how that's going to be split up between Palantir and the other companies involved. But still, this is really important aside from the money. It's going to be increasing brand, company recognition and reputation. The NHS is absolutely massive. It's a world-renowned healthcare organisation, and by Palantir being trusted and being associated with it, it gives Palantir a lot of credibility in the healthcare sector, and actually just in the government sector too. And it demonstrates their value and their credibility. Palantir are quite a small company. They are sub 50 billion in terms of market cap. They are nowhere near as big as the likes of Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, all of these massive companies. They are really quite small, and they are still a very newly public company. This tiny company is now in charge of transforming the whole of the UK's healthcare in terms of data. That's really big. But more importantly than any of that, this contract has the potential to give Palantir the access to new markets. It's an entry point. This contract, of course, does give Palantir a foothold in the UK. This means that there could be new opportunities opening up to them within the UK. Maybe they can work with different healthcare providers, the private sector here in the UK. But even thinking further afield, this opens them up to expansion in the healthcare sector in the rest of Europe. We've seen just how valuable Palantir have already been in the healthcare sector and just how quickly they are growing. We heard that previously 1% of all healthcare in the US were actually utilizing Palantir's platforms. We then heard that in a very short space of time, that percentage grew to 16%, and it's probably even more now. And we've seen the benefits that Palantir are offering this sector. We've seen them working with Tampa, we've seen them working with Concordance, and with Concordance actually, they have gone on to partner with them and develop a program, a platform that is specific to the healthcare supply chain. That's called Surgeons, and I'll cover that in a video upcoming soon. We've seen them work with Sompo care homes in Japan, now obviously the NHS, but there is even more potential and market for Palantir to grab. Palantir have worked with the NHS before they got awarded this big contract. However, this is a really, really big deal. And it's a big deal because it highlights and it shows that Palantir has the ability to operate in areas where data is really, really controlled and regulated. We know this. We know that Palantir have had a history with working with the US defense sector, US government sectors, whereby the information, the data that they are working with is some of the most classified and confidential data ever. So their platforms had to be able to deal with that. We know that they have IL level 6 clearance. They are very, very good with working with very, very sensitive data. Or maybe not even data that is really classified and confidential, but data that is really controlled and protected and very sensitive like it is here in the UK. This means that their platforms already have the built-in capabilities to do this. They have the specific functions and the tools to turn off different pieces of access to data where necessary. And because of this, it means that they are going to be able to work and be trusted to work in other healthcare organizations, whether it's public organizations or private organizations, that are very, very similar to the NHS. And this is where we start thinking about the healthcare expansion, the potential that Palantir have in the rest of Europe. So 2 countries that come to mind whereby I think Palantir could be particularly helpful and we could see them expand into in the very, very near future is Sweden and Spain. The reason for this is because I understand that the healthcare systems in those countries are not exactly the same as here in the UK, but they do have a lot of similarities. So let's start with Spain first. Spain operate a universal healthcare system. Now, I'm by no means an expert on Spanish healthcare, but I understand that each region within Spain actually operates its own healthcare system. So the responsibility for the healthcare is kind of given at a regional level. And I guess what this means is that Spain, like the UK, have a lot of disjointed data. And maybe if someone moves to a different region, their data, their healthcare information is not necessarily transferred to the new place and all joined as best as it could be. And that could, of course, have knock-on effects for the patient. I also understand that the Spanish healthcare system, and please correct me if I'm wrong on any of the information in this video in terms of the healthcare in these countries, because I'm based in the UK. I'm not an expert. This is just what I've read online. But I understand that Spain has both private and public patients, and these patients can go in between those two. And again, this really highlights the necessity to have one centralized source of truth for that data. Quick shout out to Eva Square over on X who shared this very, very helpful chart here. It is in Spanish, but from what I understand, Spain very, very recently, not long ago at all, was one of the countries that was regarded to have the best healthcare system in the world. But now they are actually struggling a little bit and they are having a record number of people waiting for operations. Again, we've seen the evidence on how helpful Palantir can be in terms of the healthcare, and we've seen studies, we've seen pieces of evidence, pilot systems that have ran here in the UK or anywhere else in the world, whereby Palantir have actually been able to help organizations utilize their data more effectively. And what that means is those waiting times can be vastly, vastly reduced. The next country is Sweden. Again, I think there are a lot of similarities between the Swedish healthcare system and the NHS here in the UK. In particular, government funded, so it's tax funded and it's universal, it's open to everyone. However, the Swedish system, like the Spanish system, I guess, is more decentralized. And it says that while the national government sets principles and guidelines, county councils actually have more autonomy in organising and delivering their regional, I guess, healthcare services. Again, Sweden is a country that is really recognised and renowned for its innovative and efficient healthcare systems. So far this year, Sweden's had a lot of issues with staff shortages, nurse shortages in their healthcare systems. And this then passes on to the patient. And those patients have been experiencing longer wait times, more delays, because it's an imbalance of staff to patient ratio. Apparently, there's also been some issues with data management and data lags and care coordination problems at a systemic level as well. All of these things could potentially mean that Palantir has a very, very good solution to help them. And then when we're thinking about how Palantir's platforms have had to fit and mold into the likes of GDPR and different regulations that are here in the UK that perhaps aren't so relevant over in the US, we start to see that they've been able to do that. So the rest of Europe doesn't seem to be that much of a big deal, providing the rest of Europe obviously want Palantir solutions. Aside from the value that Palantir are going to be able to offer the NHS, that then other organisations, healthcare organisations in Europe will look at and think, actually, we could benefit from that. There's also this idea of perceived public perception. There are, of course, concerns over Palantir being a spy company, being a data controller, being a consultancy firm, having a dark history, and all of those things slowly over time with evidence, even though the evidence is already there, but with them working in the NHS, will actually demonstrate to these other countries, these other healthcare organisations, that actually Palantir can be really trusted and they don't access data, they don't steal and sell data. To round up this video, I believe that the NHS contract that was awarded to Palantir is just a stepping stone into the rest of Europe. Let me know what other countries globally and within Europe you think that Palantir will be the most helpful in regard to the healthcare sector. If you like my content and you find value in it, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll be back very shortly with another.